somewhere, right now. A man is clocking in for his 9th hour of overtime. He believes if he just works a little harder, stays a little later, proves himself a little more, the money will eventually follow. It won't. Not because he isn't disciplined, not because he isn't smart, but because he's playing a game with rules he was never actually taught. And the people who wrote those rules never intended for him to win. Today, we're going to strip away the comforting lies about money. No motivational fluff. No just believe in yourself. Just the cold, uncomfortable mechanics of how wealth actually moves from one set of hands to another, and why most people spend their entire lives on the losing side of that exchange without ever realizing it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the safest path is often the most dangerous one, why credentials are losing their power, and why the people who look the most ruthless are usually just the ones who stopped lying to themselves first. Let's begin. Part 1. The safety that quietly kills you. Here's something nobody tells you when you're 22 years old and grateful for your first stable paycheck. Comfort has a price, and it's usually your future. A steady job, a predictable schedule, a manager who tells you exactly what to do and when to do it. It feels like security. It feels like you've made it. But look closer, and you'll see something else. You've traded your ceiling for a floor. The floor is real. You know what you'll earn next month. But that same certainty is also a cage, because the moment you stop needing to think for yourself, you stop growing the one skill that actually builds wealth, the ability to make decisions under uncertainty. Every wealthy person you admire, whether they built a company, mastered an asset class, or created something the world wanted, spent years being uncomfortable on purpose. They said yes to risk, while everyone else was saying yes to stability. Not because risk feels good, it doesn't, but because comfort has never once, in the history of money, produced a fortune. Ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time you did something that scared you financially? If the answer is, I can't remember, that's not peace of mind, that's stagnation wearing a nice outfit. Part 2. Why your degree isn't the weapon you think it is. For decades, the formula was simple. Study hard, get the degree, get the job, climb the ladder. And for a while it worked, because the ladder was short and there weren't that many people climbing it. That formula is broken now. Not because education is worthless, but because a piece of paper was never actually the valuable thing. The valuable thing was always the skill behind it. And today, skill has broken free from the institutions that used to gatekeep it. You can learn to code, to sell, to write, to build, to analyze markets, all without stepping inside a classroom. The people getting rich in the next decade won't be the ones with the most impressive diplomas hanging on their wall. They'll be the ones who can actually do the thing the market is willing to pay for. This is uncomfortable for a lot of people because they were promised that credentials equals security. But markets don't pay for effort, and they don't pay for promises. They pay for results. A 20-year-old who can build a product beats a 40-year-old with 3 degrees and no proof of output every single time. So the real question isn't what should I study next? It's what can I prove I can do right now that someone would pay for? That shift in thinking alone puts you ahead of 90% of people still waiting for permission. Part 3. The 3 things every wealthy person quietly masters. If you study people who've actually built lasting wealth, not lottery winners, not lucky trades, but real, repeatable wealth, you'll notice they're all obsessed with three things. First, ownership. They stop renting their time to someone else's dream and start owning a piece of something, whether that's a business, property, or an asset that appreciates without them clocking in. A salary pays for your life today. Ownership pays for your life for decades. Second, control. They minimize the number of people who can say no to their next move. An employee needs a manager's approval. A business owner needs a customer's approval. That's a much shorter, much more direct line between effort and reward. Third, multiplication. This is the one most people skip entirely. Wealthy people don't just earn. They build things that keep earning without them. A book that sells while they sleep. A system that runs without daily supervision. An investment that compounds in the background. This is the real dividing line between someone who works for money and someone whose money works for them. Notice that none of these three require luck. They require decisions, uncomfortable, repeated decisions, and that most people avoid because avoiding them feels safer in the short term. Part 4. The business of selling belief. Here's something that separates the merely successful from the genuinely wealthy. They stopped selling products and started selling transformation. People don't actually want a course. They want to feel capable. They don't want a gym membership. They want to feel proud when they look in the mirror. They don't want a financial product. They want to feel safe about their future. Once you understand that people buy identity, not items, everything about business and marketing changes. You're no longer competing on price. You're competing on how deeply you understand what someone is actually afraid of and what they're actually hoping to become. This isn't manipulation when it's done honestly. It's simply understanding human nature well enough to serve it. The people who refuse to understand psychology because it feels too calculated are usually the same people wondering why their honest, hard-working business never grows. Understanding desire isn't dishonest. Ignoring it is just bad strategy. Part 5. Why hard work alone is a trap. We need to say something that will upset a lot of people. Hard work by itself has never made anyone rich. Hard work is necessary. It is not sufficient. There are people working 60-hour weeks in jobs that will never pay them what they're worth, no matter how hard they push, because effort was never the bottleneck. Leverage was. Leverage means getting a result that's disproportionate to your effort. A farmer with a plow outputs more than a farmer with bare hands. A business owner with 10 employees outputs more than a freelancer working alone. A creator with an audience of 1 million outputs more than a creator starting from 0. Even if both are working the exact same number of hours, the wealthy don't work more than everyone else. They work on things that multiply. They ask a different question before they start any task. Does this effort get bigger over time, or does it disappear the moment I stop? A job disappears the moment you stop. A system, an asset, or an audience keeps compounding long after you've moved on to the next thing. This is the single biggest mental shift between someone who stays comfortable and someone who eventually builds real wealth. Stop asking how hard you can work. Start asking what you can build that works, even when you don't. Part 6. Building the machine that pays you while you sleep. So how does someone actually build leverage without needing millions of dollars to start? You begin small, but you begin with the right shape. Instead of trading an hour for a wage, you create something once and sell it repeatedly. A piece of content, a digital product, a skill packaged into a service that doesn't require your constant presence, a small amount of capital placed into an asset that grows on its own timeline. None of this happens overnight, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you a fantasy, not a strategy. What actually happens is unglamorous. You build something small, it barely works. You improve it, it works a little better. You repeat that process for months, sometimes years, while people around you assume you're wasting your time. Then one day, the system that used to require your full attention starts running with only a fraction of it. That gap between what the system produces and what you personally have to do to maintain it, that gap is wealth. It's not the money itself, it's the space between your effort and your income. The bigger that space grows, the wealthier you become, even if the number in your bank account is still modest. Part 7. The price of winning. There's one part of this journey nobody warns you about, and it's important enough to say clearly. The moment you start winning, some people around you will quietly stop being happy for you. This isn't paranoia, it's human nature. People compare themselves to those closest to them, not to strangers on the internet. When your circumstances change and theirs don't, it creates a distance that's uncomfortable for everyone, even the people who genuinely love you. You don't need to become cold or suspicious of everyone, but you do need to expect this, so it doesn't blindside you. The friend who used to celebrate your small wins might go quiet on your bigger ones. The family member who used to give advice might start giving criticism instead. This isn't proof that you did something wrong. It's proof that you did something different. And different always makes people uncomfortable, even when it's good. The people who actually sustain wealth over decades learn to expect this reaction calmly, without resentment, and without needing everyone's approval to keep moving forward. Approval was never the goal. Freedom was. None of this is about becoming ruthless for the sake of it. It's about seeing the game clearly instead of playing it blindfolded. Comfort feels safe, but it quietly costs you your future. Credentials feel impressive, but skill is what actually gets paid. Hard work feels noble, but leverage is what actually compounds. Ownership, control, and the ability to multiply your effort. These aren't tricks. They're the same 3 principles repeated quietly by every person who has ever built wealth that outlasted a single paycheck. The uncomfortable truth is this: you already have everything you need to start. Not the money, not the connections, just the willingness to stop waiting for permission and start building something that doesn't need you standing over it every single hour of the day. The choice, as always, is yours. Most people will watch this video, nod, and go right back to the same routine tomorrow morning. A few will actually change one decision this week, just one. And that one decision is usually where every real fortune quietly begins. If this made you think differently, even for a moment, that was the point.